Hello, my name is Rose, and welcome to another installment of The Love Doctor with the one, the only, the Love Doctor, me, Rose, who is here to answer your most ardent and confusing questions about love, dating, and relationships. And in this new installment, called The Science of Love, I will delve more deeply into the psychology of heartbreak, of breakups, first in understanding the science behind the pain of social rejection, as well as the physiological and psychological differences between how men and women process breakups. Now, that is one of the most commonly asked questions that I get from clients, which is, why doesn't he care? It seems as if men just shut off their feelings when you break up with them, and it seems sometimes based on their social media profiles, maybe they're posting pictures on Facebook with new people, and women oftentimes think, well, they just don't care. But really, the science behind it is actually quite different. So tune into the rest of the video if you would like to discover the scientific and biological reasons behind why men act this way. Because something I often say in my other videos is that human behavior is quite complicated. And so sometimes people don't understand their psychological or even subconscious motivations behind their behavior, their own behavior, as well as that of their partner or their lover. So people don't understand oftentimes why men behave the way that they do after breakups. And so I'm here to help you understand and hopefully help you find some relief. If you think that he doesn't care, then the opposite is most likely true. So delving into it first, let's understand what happens when people have the pain of social rejection. And I will link the scientific studies and research in the description box below if you are interested in reading that directly. So there was one study that was done by the American Psychological Association where they measured the pain of rejection. And this was done with a computer simulation where they three players were passing a ball between each other, and at some point the third player is excluded. And they found that regardless of whether they cared about these other players or even knew them, or even if there was some sort of subconscious bias such as race behind the reason of the rejection, it didn't ease the pain of the social rejection whatsoever. So let's start by looking at it from the simple scientific basis of what causes heartbreak. So our brains are wired in a certain way. Now, when you create attachment to someone after you have been seeing them for a certain period of time, there are chemicals that are released on both parts. One is oxytocin, which is the chemical that is often referred to as the one as being responsible for the chemical feeling of love, as well as dopamine. And on men's part, there's a chemical called vasopressin that is also released that is oftentimes not discussed. So why does this matter? The reason why you feel such pain when you break up with someone or someone breaks up with you or you are just apart from the person that you love is because at that point, the normal release of dopamine that you would typically get when you communicate with this person or in their presence is restricted. And so you could think of this person as if you were looking at it in terms of a drug that you are going in withdrawal from, then this person is basically like your love drug. And because you are prohibited from seeing them or spending time with them, then that lack of dopamine that is released is the cause of the pain that you feel. So when you are heartbroken, you are basically in a sort of withdrawal. And the only relief would be contact with that person, which is why so oftentimes when you either break up with someone or someone breaks up with you, there is this almost overwhelming urge to reach out to them, because that is your body's survival instinct trying to get that dopamine that is no longer being released by contact with this person. So that is the scientific reason behind why it is that you feel that when you are heartbroken. Now, a lot of the questions that I get from women is, why does it seem that he doesn't care? And the reason is because your breakup is on different timelines for you and for your partner if he is male. And this doesn't mean that doesn't work the same for same-sex relationships as well, because there is a certain level of this regardless of your gender. But for this video, looking at it from a biological perspective of women trying to understand why men react the way that they do, then we'll just use that as the standard example. So why is it that men seem to not care after you break up? And the reason is that according to the scientific research that they've done on heartbreak, when women break up with someone, they have first they release their emotions all at once. So for us women, when you break up with someone or someone breaks up with you, you feel the heartbreak immediately. It is painful and it is overwhelming, as I don't have to tell my viewers because they most likely know from personal experience. And you feel an almost overwhelming urge to stop this withdrawal that your brain is basically in and contact this person. Now, I go into later videos and in my coaching about the differences between urges and actual feelings or emotions, but that's something that we'll go into in another video. But for the purposes of this, I will just say that sometimes those feelings are completely overwhelming, and in order to give ourselves some relief, sometimes we will even want to reach out, even though we know it's a bad idea to do so, just to relieve our pain, at least immediately. The second difference is that women typically have a much broader support system. So they have friends, family, whether it's your best friend or your mother that you talk to at 3 o'clock in the morning, in order to process this, in order to express it and get it out of ourselves, which is a huge part in the healing process, as well as to not just rationalize, but to really logically process not just the reasons behind the breakup, but what was the point of this relationship? Was there something that I got out of it? Was there something that I learned? So at the end of the day, after about a month or two of grieving, the natural process of grieving, the relationship is over, then we can find some sort of understanding, some sort of purpose to all the pain, and to the end of the relationship. Whereas men deal with breakups on an entirely different timeline, which is where these two timelines coincide at some point. Now, a lot of this is part of the reason why I'm able to help people when they are trying to get back with their exes, because I have a clear understanding of the biological differences and the different timelines that men and women are going through. when they are going through breakups. So for men, it is actually an entirely different process. So let's look at it from a biological perspective. There was another scientific study that was done that reveals it assessed, I guess, the emotional state of about 2,000 divorced men and women. And what it found is that a breakup tends to hit a woman harder in the beginning, as I already discussed, but over time they actually get over it in the long run, whereas the men will hold on to these sad feelings surrounding the separation for years and sometimes lifetimes to come, for decades. Sometimes they never get over it. And there's a reason why. Now, looking at it from a simply biological, physiological perspective, part of the reason could be because after breakups, men have a chemical called vasopressin that is released that allows them to suppress their feelings of heartbreak. And part of that reason could be for survival mechanisms that were in place back in the day when, we were cavemen and nomads, because if men had to leave their family for long periods of time in order to hunt and gather food, then they couldn't be hindered by heartbreak. They needed to be able to do that in order to survive. So perhaps evolution placed this loophole for men to not allow their feelings to overwhelm them all at once. So they release a chemical called vasopressin, and they basically shut off their feelings for a period of time. Now, another big part of why men process breakups differently is societal programming. Now, as you all know, society says, I'm sure you're familiar with this on one level or another. Society tells men that they are only allowed to show certain emotions. Now, sadness and feelings are not one of them. Now, the only feeling that they are readily allowed to express is anger. So a lot of times men turn to that, and sometimes even alcohol, in order to process the breakup on some emotional level, or really to maybe feel the underlying feelings that they have been trying so hard to suppress. Now, it doesn't mean that they never feel these things. It just means that it takes a longer amount of time. So whereas women feel the breakup and they get hit with the feelings and a spike, and then over, let's say, the next month or two, the heartbreak and the grief start going down as they process it, as they let it out, as they naturally have support from their friends and discuss it with their girlfriends and try to rationalize and analyze the reasons behind the breakup and whether what it was that they did wrong and what the other party did wrong and what hopefully they learned from all of that. Men are trying to do the opposite. They're trying to suppress their feelings. They're trying not to feel the heartbreak. Maybe posting things on social media in order to tell themselves and the world, hey, I'm okay, I don't care, I'm a big, strong man. But the reality is actually far from that. So let's say you broke up with someone. 2 months down the line, you're getting better, you're getting over it. Out of the blue, there he calls. Why does that happen? Because for men, the pain of breakups is something that builds up over time. So let's say they have been out with their friends drinking and maybe hooking up with random people in order to try to suppress these feelings that are always in the back of their mind. One way to see it could be something akin to something like guilt. Guilt is not something that you feel overwhelmingly unless you did just something horrible, but usually it's something that you feel in a small amount. It's like a nagging voice in the back of your head that you try to ignore, but then day after days go by and things remind you of it. And a few weeks later, that voice is so overwhelming that you either need to apologize or you need to do something to get rid of this guilt that seems to have just grown to overwhelming proportions. So that is the same way that men process breakups. It's not that they don't feel the pain, it's just that the pain grows very slowly and steadily over time up to the point where it reaches a peak. Whereas for women, it's actually the opposite. It starts at a peak, and then over the period of time, let's say several months, the pain and the grief slowly starts to go away. So you might say, oh, well, men have a huge advantage then because they can just shut their feelings off and not feel it. But the reality is actually the opposite. And what this study and several others have found is that while men are not feeling this immediately, the long-term effects of their heartbreak being suppressed is actually far worse than feeling the pain overwhelmingly at once and then having the ability to get over it. So what this indicates is that men actually have a much harder time when processing breakups. And sometimes it just takes them a lot longer to get to the point that we may have felt a few minutes or a few hours after having broken up with them. So next time you think, oh, well, he just doesn't care, then maybe just give yourself a second to think things through logically. And just the fact that he is not outwardly expressing these things because society tells him that he's not allowed to, doesn't mean that he's not carrying this heartbreak deep inside. And what these studies found is that when they ask men about the one who got away, even if it was 10 or 20 years down the line, sometimes the men break down crying just at the thought of this person that they let go. And the reason for that is because the emotions are so raw underneath the surface because they have never, ever processed it. And the reason that I have made this video is to hopefully give some relief to women who might think that their ex just doesn't care. That is definitely not the case. And that's also what allows me to help my clients when they are trying desperately to get back their ex, because there's a lot of steps that need to be taken in order to do that. It's not a simple solution. If that's what you're looking for, then that's not what it is. It's definitely a lifestyle change. And it takes a lot of understanding of, as I said, the fundamental psychological and a lot of the times nuanced reasons behind not just our behavior and why we do the things we do, and understanding, why the breakup happened to begin with, which I will make another video after this if you are interested in the content, and understanding why breakups happen, the reasons why women think that they happen versus the actual reasons. And I don't mean the actual reasons from the perspective of the man, because as I said, sometimes they don't even know why they behave the way that they do, but really the underlying physiological and psychological reasons behind breakups. So if you're interested in that content, please watch my next video on that subject. And if you liked this video, then please do remember to like, share, and subscribe below and hit the little bell so that you do not miss any new content as it is uploaded. And if this has helped you, or it can help someone in your life who is going through a hard time with breakups, then please feel free to share this with them. I definitely believe that we are sometimes guided towards the things that we need at the moments that we need them. People call these things synchronicities. And so I hope that this has helped you and it has come in a timely manner. And if it can help someone else in your life, then as I said, please feel free to share it with them. And if it has helped you understand or feel empowered or inspired, then please leave that in the comment section below. I read each and every comment and I respond to most. And if you would like help from me in understanding what led to your relationship breakup, or even how to get your ex back with my proven methods with a 99% success rate, then please email me at deardoclove@gmail.com, and that information can be found in the description box below, as well as a link for a Good Karma donation. If this information has been helpful to you and you would like me to help keep my channel going, then please donate as well below. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that it has been informational and that it has brought some relief to you as well. Until next time, I will see you on the next segment. And until then, remember that you are worthy, you are beautiful, and you are perfect, just as you are.